Good morning and welcome to EDNA. Turn your mic on, please. Just hit the button. There you go. Thank you.
Okay. So my name is Dennis Febo. I drove all the way up here from New Jersey to come be with you lovely folks. I'm the lead organizer for the Abolish Slavery National Network. Our organization has been going around the country abolishing constitutional slavery. We've done so successfully in 7 states, while Rhode Island had done so initially when we first started this back in history. I think this is a pretty clear-cut conversation because it seems like people want to get stuck in the weeds about trying to define things, and it starts to look a little disconnected and insensitive, right? Because we're talking about a very simple issue, number one, that's outlined in international law. Article 4, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, slavery shall be abolished in all of its forms. The exception clause in the United States Constitution and for the states that hold it are participating in a form of slavery. Now, if we want to do a distinction between slavery and involuntary servitude, slavery when it talks about propertization of the body, involuntary servitude speaking about work. However, Black's Law Dictionary, definition of involuntary servitude, the term used when a person is forced to work against his will, period. Slavery, period. It's the same thing. According to Black's Law, there's no distinction between slavery and involuntary servitude. And if someone needed to argue that involuntary servitude as slavery needed to exist in order for the justice system to do what they do, anyone arguing for the permanence of slavery and involuntary servitude is technically violating international law. It shouldn't even be a discussion. It needs to be abolished in all of its forms. It's also not restricted to labor, right? The issues of slavery and involuntary servitude, if anybody understands post-abolition, 1866, Section 2 of the 13th Amendment, the establishment of the Freedmen's Bureau and the federal government sending all of its agents to every state looking for all of the badges and incidents. Convict leasing, which was mentioned before, those that were freed from slavery, the 13th Amendment exception, as per Abraham Lincoln's understanding, and this goes back to 1777, was to be able to use the labor continuously post-slavery abolition and created an entire economy where, for example, the state of Alabama, gross domestic product, almost 80% of it came from convict leasing. The state of Alabama would not exist if that didn't happen, right? So we're saying not just what happened in history and that the states that we're on and the economy that we stand on was built upon these constructs. They're still legal today. In the federal constitution, it says except as punishment for crime. If something has an exception, it is not abolished. So to say that slavery is abolished, and then we're going to go into the racial one. New Hampshire has double the amount of prisoners than England. Out of that, 5.7% times higher black people than white people. On the federal scale, 67% of those incarcerated are black and brown. 92% of elected prosecutors are white. This is the most racist system in the world. And to not acknowledge it, because here we're going to say the numbers ain't lying, prisonpolicy.org, if 90% of New Hampshire is white, why do we have 5.7 times more percent black people in prison? If we are 5% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's incarcerated, we are out of line. We have designed a system that keeps economy down specifically for people of color in this country, and this loophole has been used in all kinds of ways, not just in labor. The ability to vote, the conversation on wages, locomotion, parole, probation, the whole, conditions of confinement, all of it revolves around slavery. And we're in 2024 having a conversation, and I really want to see who comes up here to defend it, because now we know who's in violation of international law. It is illegal. Do we uphold international law in the United States? Maybe not, but I know what it is. This is where our Constitution came from, and we already signed the Convention of 1926. It's already illegal on the federal scale. There's 2 laws that are opposite to each other in the federal scale, and we're choosing to look at one. But if I'm looking at the United States standard in the world, do we stand in standard to the rest of the world? Does New Hampshire? The answer is absolutely not. Your Constitution allows for its legality. There shouldn't be any other discussion. It should just be illegal. If someone has to argue why it needs to be legal in order for corrections to do business, in order for us to talk about an inmate cleaning their cell, If you feel like slavery is necessary, then you argue for it. You tell us why it's involuntary servitude. Don't ask us to define it. It's already defined. But getting us stuck in the weeds when we're trying to argue on international law, I don't think is fair, and I think it's insensitive. Right? Here we're saying, can we just make slavery involuntary servitude illegal finally in 2024 in the state of New Hampshire? Can the people decide? That's the question. But for us to get caught in technicalities or to listen to people who have used this system, whether public or private, to profit off of it, I don't think it's fair. All right, so to say that we have ended slavery in Colorado, Utah, Nebraska, Tennessee, Alabama, slavery's not in the South, slavery's all over the United States, wherever it's legal constitutionally, including the islands of Puerto Rico, Virgin Islands, Guam, and the Mariana Islands. It's not about the South. This is all over the place. And what we're doing is trying to end it, not just on every state level to adhere to international law, but also to reach the mark in 38 states so we can repeal and replace the 13th Amendment and replace with the 28th, permanently abolishing slavery in the United States of America. That federal bill is up, sponsored by Merkley, Sanders, Booker, and Williams. Your state assembly, 366 of them already voted and acknowledged that slavery is legal and that something needs to be done about it. 366 to 5 no's. I really want to know who the 5 no's were. And I think you should want to know too, as government officials. Who uses their political power to try to maintain slavery? So I would love to see how this comes out, but I think it's clear cut. It's logic. It's not based on emotion. We understand where we stand in international law. Does New Hampshire stand with human rights? That's the question. All right, I'll leave it at that.
Thank you for your testimony. Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you.